Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. We've both had fairly eventful weeks.
I know.
I would have to say congratulations.
Okay.
I mean, like, you did well. You executed.
Okay.
Until you didn't execute.
Give a little context.
So it's exactly 1 week away. 1 week since.
1 week. Yeah. Well, 1 week in a day because we're recording this on a Saturday, and I competed on a Friday. But yeah, I competed at the 2020 PANS here in Orlando.
Here in Kissimmee.
Let's
Greater Orlando area.
Greater Orlando area. All the greats were there. Galval, Lucas Leitch. It was cool.
Does it every time you shake? Did like every time like Galval greet somebody, he like just ripped his shirt off and screamed in their face?
No. Actually, honestly, like I didn't see any people like fanboying or fangirling out
because there's no fans there.
Yeah, but most fans at jiu-jitsu events are other jiu-jitsu practitioners anyway.
That's
like
true.
Jiu-jitsu doesn't have like casual
fans. Yeah.
But I don't know if it was just people already knew each other to some degree because it's a small community.
They're the circuit folks.
Yeah,
right?
It's like going to a business conference and you see the same people. It's like, oh, that's Sally from Seattle.
We'll have to get a drink later.
Yeah, exactly. One of those things. So I don't know what the context was in that respect, but it was cool to see those guys. It was cool to see them in person. They weren't. Galval was not. Wasn't. You know, a lot of these people weren't as big as I expected. The big guys were not as big as I thought. Some of the
big guys meaning like
Galval was Paul's size, except more or less the same height, if maybe an inch taller, but really just the same. I would say the same height as Paul, the same build as Paul, except you went into Photoshop and you turn Galval to your side and you take his chest and you pull it out, and you take his back and you pull it out. So he's like twice as thick from chest to back than Paul is, even though like genetically they look very similar. And then Galval does have a bigger head. You know,
probably from getting clubbed.
I don't know.
Right.
The meows were taller than I expected.
Really?
They were tall, very skinny with very high shoulders.
High shoulders.
Yeah, they look like guys that walk around with their shoulders kind of.
They're
up.
Just constantly surprised or constantly don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of.
No, you no say?
Yeah, exactly. The guy who was gigantic was a guy that I'm not familiar with. Actually, I'm familiar with him only because of our conversation with Carlos last week. Brought him to front of mind. Is Pedapano.
Oh yeah. You mean the UFC fighter Pedapano? He was a heavyweight.
Yeah, I mean he's fucking huge.
Yeah.
Now he's put on some weight. You know,
as I think most later age jiu-jitsu athletes tend to do.
But I mean he was at like 6'4", 6'5", it looked like.
Oh yeah.
I mean he was big.
I mean he fought. If it's the Pedapano I'm thinking of,
I think there's probably only one.
Marcio Cruz, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He fought in heavyweight at UFC. So I mean, he was fighting like I forgot who he fought, but I mean you got to be fucking big to fight. So, he's got to be gigantic.
He was super big. So yeah, it was a good experience for sure.
Cool. That's awesome. How much? So tell me about your. Did you? So by the time you got there, how much sort of like feeling it out, checking out the landscape and.
Yeah, so
getting in your mindset.
Yeah, so I came here to the gym. I was scheduled to compete at 1:30. So I came over to the gym, met up with Paul. We went together in his vehicle to the venue. I always mess this up. I think it's the Sand Spur Arena I think it's the Silver Spur Arena. Yeah. And Paul actually used to fight there.
Yeah, in like the WEF days, I believe.
Yeah, where he said, you know, they did rodeos and stuff. Just kind of what Carlos was talking about the week before. But he was like, oh, I remember how you get to this place. So we pulled up, and right away as we're pulling in, because they have parking at the venue. Are
you, just out of curiosity, are you trying to cut weight while you're there too? Or like even does Paul have the heat on? And
no,
you're like
I woke up at 63.
That's where you need to be?
That's where I need to be. So I woke up at 63, and because I have to be 168 with the gi on, and the gi is between 3 and 4 pounds. Mm-hmm. So I was, and again, I'm taking into account that maybe my scale is off potentially, you know. So I just didn't want to fuck around with that.
Okay.
So I didn't drink water that much though. So that was the one thing. It was like I woke up, I was on, I had the food I was going to have, and then I didn't have too much to drink. So I was like, okay, I'll just, I'll have like Cottonmouth there, and then I will, drink some water once. Yeah, exactly. Which is ultimately what I did. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Let's milk this for all it's worth.
So you get there. Paul remembers how to get there.
Yeah, so I get there. The venue itself, they had pretty significant security in terms of who to show and how to get in there, and so you had to.
Are they doing like temperature checks and stuff at the door?
Yeah, they're doing temperature checks. They're doing a whole bunch of stuff, and there's a gentleman there that asked me, "Hey man, is someone coaching you?" I was like, "Yeah, that guy over there," and he didn't understand. He's like, "Hey man, because I need to coach one of my fighters. Can I go in with you?" I was like, "No, my coach is there." He's like, "Oh, sorry, brother." So I mean,
so people are trying to game.
They're trying to get in.
+1.
Yeah, they're trying to get in. I don't doubt that he's trying to coach somebody. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's just lying. But anyway, when we went into park, literally we park. Just like we'd park at any event place here, right? Kind of pulling into the grass and the extended parking, and right in front of the car walks Elizabeth Clay.
Who?
Elizabeth Clay is a black belt who just competed against Gabby Garcia, who's number 1.
Okay.
So she's there, like kind of a tank toppy kind of thing, just waltzing around with one of her friends. I was like, okay, well, now
these are pans.
All the random people wandering around are going to be black belts.
Yeah.
This is kind of cool.
Like elite black belts.
Yeah, elite. Like,
not even black belts.
So anyway, we check in, and it's probably an hour and 15 minutes before call time. Call time being like when I'd compete, rather. And the way the system works is they have television. By the way, the venue looked great. The mats look great. I'll give IBJJF plenty of props. Right? Very professional. And really, in the scheme of things, I was called pretty much on time.
Nice.
I wasn't, it wasn't like when I've gone to any other local tournament where they tell you 1:30 and then you go on at 5:40. Excuse me, like 3:45, and it's just kind of a cluster. So very well run in that respect. And they had a screen. They had a screen that had columns in it that correspond to each mat, and it was basically the upcoming schedule for each of the mats. So it's like this match is going on, then this match, and this match.
So these people on deck.
Yes. So the minute you appear on the screen is when you're allowed to check in. So that's how they did check-ins. Check-in being you do your weight in front of a person, and they sign you up, and you're in the fighter area now. You're in the on-deck circle, so to speak.
Corral.
Yeah, you're in the corral, and you can't leave that corral. It's like until they call you. So
you and your coach are allowed, or
just me,
just you, okay.
Just the competitor, because there are no coaches allowed to sit next to the competitor like on the judges' side. They eliminated that, so now it's just
is that a COVID thing or is that a
no? That's an IBJJF thing. So now they just lean over the railing when people walk.
Really?
Yeah, so anyone can coach. They're just part of the spectators screaming at you. So Paul and I found a spot, to kind of chill. And about an hour out, I started, I was like, okay, let's get loose. So, I'd been stretching a little bit up until there, and just to start to get loose a little bit. And then Paul put me through a warm-up, which was great. I kind of took my...
That's right. Y'all go to Noah.
I kind of just took my... my the dogs have invaded.
How do I pull guard against a dog?
Anyway...
No, he's fine.
I kind of turned things, I turned my brain off, and Paul kind of walked me through the warm up and got me loose and some drills.
Now, is it like our class warm up? Are you doing that?
It was
a little bit more
sports
specific.
Yeah, and there was no warm up mat, so we're doing this in the concrete of
what?
Yeah.
How? So is that?
I think that might be COVID related, that they didn't have a warm up mat.
Okay.
For COVID reasons, because
I mean, just everybody would be on.
Yeah, right? I guess so. We and they were pretty good about sanitizing between matches.
Nice.
Whereas with that, it's like, how do you judge when you would sanitize? Like, a bunch of people are warming up and then you sanitize, and then
right.
So whatever. So we're doing it on the concrete. Fine. I see my name appear on the board. Okay. I go step on the scale that they have available to the athletes outside, so you can weigh yourself prior. I was with the gi. I was like 166. Like, I came in like 2 pounds. Like, I was light. I was like 165, 166.
So you're in the 80 kilos is what it is. 168, right? 2.2 times 80.
Yeah, but my point is I was trying to be just around, like, just under 168. I came probably like 3 or 4 pounds under, just from the little sweating from warm up and stuff. Yeah, so I was under more than I expected, which is fine, you know.
Yeah.
So I checked in. They checked my uniform. They have a gizmo for checking the uniform. I've never seen. It's like
you can buy it now.
It's a plastic. It's like a plastic wand that has like slits in it and stuff. So it's for measuring like the thickness of lapels, for measuring the amount of space between your
thickness of lapels.
Yeah,
Really?
The thickness of lapels, the thickness of your belt, the width of your belt, the space between your arm and the gi. So basically, they make sure the diameter of your arms is correct with respect to your arm. So you can't be wearing a tight gi, like a form-fitting gi. Like there needs to be enough give.
Yeah.
So they slide this wand. You put your arm straight and then you slide that wand between your arm and the material to make sure it can fit through. So after I got that, I went in and I drank a good amount of Gatorade and some water, but not too much that I was like going to be bloated and like all that. And up into, through this whole point, I definitely had, what I called the butterflies, the butterflies there. And I was, but that was, nothing too bad. Just everything that I've gone through when I was a kid competing, nothing too big. You just deal with it kind of thing. And then I was in, and it was really, I thought this was like probably one of the cooler moments was I had, Paul came to the edge of that competitor waiting area, and he asked me like, what mat are you going to be on? And I pointed to the mat just over there. I was like, hey, I'll be on that mat right there. He's like, okay, good. And they came in closer, and he gave me the only piece of coaching I got, which was, he's like, so don't be afraid to push the pace. He says, you've got good wind. He's like, once you get settled, don't get caught in anything crazy at the beginning, but once you feel comfortable, don't be afraid to push the pace. You got the wind to do it, and these guys probably won't be able to keep up.
Nice.
And that was just what I need to hear.
Right.
That's like, fuck yeah, man. I can. There's like a story, like I don't know if it's true, but it's like an old wild tales about the horse Secretariat, that won the Triple Crown that everyone loved. It was the one that won the Triple Crown for a very long period of time in recent, like we're talking about decades. No horse had won the Triple Crown since Secretary. I think recently a horse did, and that was kind of a big deal. But Secretary, this really famous horse, and when he's about to go on the third race, so that the Triple Crown is they win 3 major, the tournament, the Kentucky Derby, the Belmont Stakes, and the Preakness. I don't know which order, it is. I think the Belmont Stakes is the last one, but the trainer just tells the story goes, and again, this is kind of I think more of an old wives' tale, but I think the analogy you'll get, it was just sort of like, just let the horse. It's like this is the last race. He doesn't have another race after this. Just let the horse go. See how fast, see how he goes. Just let him go. You know what I mean? Let's see how far he can push it. And that's how I kind of felt. I was like, fuck, let's push it.
Swing away.
Yeah, you got the green light. Go. See what happens. So within about 5 minutes or less, they called me, which was faster than I expected. So I went on 20 minutes earlier than I expected, probably. Even though I was like at the bottom of the call sheet, the fact that I think me and my opponent had checked in relatively early, they're like, okay, these 2 fighters are ready, or these 2 competitors are ready. Get them on the mat, just so it's done. So they called us. They led me, went to the mat, put my shoes there, did my little warm-up focusing ritual. And I stepped on the mat, man. The ref called me on the mat, stepped on, I shook his hand. I shook my opponent's hand, and we went to it.
Yes.
So it was, you've seen the match. Anyone who's friends with me on Instagram, you can see the match. It's not that long. So I was ready to go right away. In the sense that I'm glad I had that one tournament before, because I always remember how jarring it was. They call you, and it's like, okay, go. Yeah. And you're like, what? Like
you
that's
sound like
it.
in class. It's like, all right, slap hands.
Yeah, every sort of like competitive event, there's always some build up to the start. It's not just like, all right, A, B on the, okay, go. There's always some sort of like ritual or something that leads you into it, you know?
Yeah.
This was just like, okay, go, combate. But this time so it was like, you know, I shook the guy's hand ahead of time, made some space. The guy said combate, and I was just like, all right, let's go. And I circled a little bit just to get loose, you know, move. The guy kind of just stood there. Went in to do some grip fighting. He started opening my lapel, trying to like flick open my lapel.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, this guy's a little weird. So, you know, my strategy going in, I had a clear game plan of, you know, pulling De La Riva the minute I get the grips. I got the grips. I immediately pulled De La Riva. I immediately went to off balance him one way or the other. I almost got him down. I did not get an advantage, but I got him I got him down a little bit on a single leg X sweep, you know, an off balance. But he didn't go down. I didn't come up. I do remember Paul saying, get up, and I didn't get up. And we ended up in half guard. I just remember seeing a gap to dive up for an underhook. And I always told myself going into this, it's like, you can't hesitate. You've got to always go and always be pushing. Don't settle. Like, that was a big thing. Don't settle. So I immediately saw that. I dug an underhook, and things kind of took over. It was funny. Like, I watched the video and I know I can see what happened. I ended up getting a coyote hook. I got the underhook. I switched my feet to get a coyote hook on his leg. I was trying to, and I took my other hand and scooped his foot and heel, so I was pulling that in. So I was taking away his base. I was looking to roll him, but I wanted to come up a little bit first to create the pressure so I could roll the other way.
Yeah.
And he just went down. So I just kept coming up. Like, I just felt him go, so I just came up.
Right.
And then he turned away and gave me his back. So I went from a tight waist to just both hands around his waist. And he's kind of in that position that UFC fighters are in when they don't want to get kneed to the head. So they put both their hands on the ground. They're bending over, and they've got their feet on the ground and their hands on the ground. So you can't hit my head. You know, you can't.
Tripod.
And I just hopped on his back. For a second, I thought I might slide off. And I was like, just don't slide off his fucking
His
back.
hips were higher than his head, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
his hips were higher than his head. And I got my hooks in, and I was on his back. And that was 45 seconds into the match. And I looked over, and I saw the score was 6-0. And at that point, I was focused on making sure my head I was ear to ear with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I had lapel grips. I gave a try at a cross choke real quick. The guy was holding my, the kill hand side very well. So there was still more than 4 minutes left. So I remember very vividly saying, all right, let's be smart here. Lock up a body triangle and get to work. But lock up a body triangle so this guy can't get out.
Yeah.
And I locked the body triangle. Which was on the top side. We then rolled, and now the triangle's foot was on the bottom side. And I'm just kind of there, and I'm starting to work, and I start to feel this odd pressure on my foot, and I'm like, oh fuck, my foot's trapped. And then I feel inside heel hook pressure on my leg,
right,
both of my knee and my foot. I feel my ankle pop twice, and I'm like, as this is happening, I'm like, no, like right before that happened, like, wait, what the fuck's going on? And then crack in my foot.
Ugh.
And I'm trying to extract my foot. I'm like, at this point, I'm like, okay, my foot's gone, but I need to get my foot out, and then I can operate. Like my mind, I've heard all these jiu-jitsu people say, people let their foots go all the time because they know you can recover from it. So in my mind, I was like, I'm not fucked. I didn't think about like my next match or anything. I just knew that like my foot popping is not catastrophic. Right. The knee is scary though.
Yes.
So I'm trying to extract my foot. I feel my knee pop. Like I feel boom in the inside of my knee.
Yeah.
I scream, I tap, stop, and I curse fuck loudly, and I'm just kind of crumpled on the mat, just freaking out that.
Oh man.
I was like, did I just fuck up my ACL or MCL or something? And the ref came over, and I'm just like on my side, covering my face. There's no crying. There's really no pain, honestly. It's just mental shock.
Yeah.
And just like going through nightmare scenarios in my head.
Right.
And the ref comes over, he's like, "You okay, bro?" You know. So I guess I'm not down there that long. It felt like a long time that I was there. And the guy said, "You need help getting up?" And I was like, "Yeah." So he helped me get up. I'm just hopping. I can't put any weight on my leg. So I hop over. The guy, the ref, raises the guy's hands. They face him both ways. There's no audience, but it's like one way, turn around the other way. So I hop around the other way. He brings, they always bring the two competitors together to shake. So he like brings us together. The guy said something along the lines of, my opponent said, "You were really strong," or something like that. He didn't say it like, he said it very sheepishly. You know what I mean? So
he was quite a bit taller than you.
He was very lanky.
Yeah.
Yeah. He wasn't too much taller than me, but yeah, he was an inch or two taller than me, So then I hopped into this little area that they had for the trainer, and the trainer there took a look at my knee. It was extremely tender. She did some stability testing, I guess. She pushed it in the direction it did not want to be pushed,
Oof.
And she said, I think you're okay. Like it feels okay. At that point, I don't know how much confidence I had in anything at that point. I was just kind of emotional, not in the sense of, again, crying, but just emotional in terms of just a lot of thoughts going through my mind. It's like, I just need to process this and accept it.
Yeah.
So she gave me some ice, and then I hopped out, went back to where I was, put the ice on, just kind of sat there and processed the whole thing. I shot a whole bunch of fucking Instagram videos. If anyone's friends with me on Instagram, you got like 5 to 10 minutes.
A lot of stream of consciousness.
A lot of stream of consciousness. You did get an update on that. Before I go into like what happened to my knee and all that, I say the funniest thing of the whole thing was that Paul completely missed it. He's watching the whole match. He completely missed what happened because he said, and I quote, "I was already looking for the gi of like a Carlson Gracie gi on another mat to see who your next opponent was," because he's like, "Oh, that's a wrap. He's in his best position on the guy's back. It's over."
Yeah.
So
carts and horses and whatnot, right?
Yeah. So he's like, "All right, let's look ahead now. This one's over." Well, it's over, but not for the right reason. So the post-mortem is first about the knee. I had Mike, our resident Dr. Mike, who works with knees all the time, take a look at my knee a couple days later or a day later, and did stability tests on him. He did stability tests on me, and he said, knee feels solid and intact. It looks very much like an MCL sprain. So I don't know what grade of a sprain it is, but probably 2 to 4 weeks is general estimate. I've had significant improvement in the first few days, just to go from not being able to put any weight on it to being able to put weight on it and walk.
Yeah.
My foot was fucked up too, but I'm familiar with like ankle sprains and those kind of injuries, so that'll probably nag me a little bit, but I can put weight on it again on that foot, and it is what it is. But I've rolled my ankle enough that I know I'm okay. It might take a little longer, might take a little less, but it'll be fine. The knee, I haven't experienced an injury like this before. It's still very sore and will stiffen up, but does not stiffen up as much as it did earlier on in the week.
Have you started noticing a pattern of which, if you just kind of like turn one way or the other, and you're like, oh wait, I forgot about that.
Oh yeah, it's definitely, obviously, if I were to have my knee at a 90-degree angle and to take pressure, if I put pressure on the outside of my knee push my knee inward, therefore expanding the inside of my knee, that's where the soreness is. So it's still very sore when I press it, but as we were talking off air right before we started, like I went into the gym and deadlifted a little bit with lighter weights, but that didn't seem to aggravate it. And I've been doing a lot of rehab work to keep the mobility going in the area, get blood flowing. So I don't know if I had this, not that I wish I had this injury before, but I don't know how I'm netting out in terms of recovery yet. I definitely feel like I'm very thankful. Well, I'm hugely thankful that my knee is intact. Like beyond thankful. Like that's out of anything. Like whatever happens with the matches, whatever. It's just that I'll be able to, that I escape this without serious injury is massive. So whether it takes another week, whether it takes another 6 weeks or another 8 weeks, that is going to be a finite amount of time, and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
I just I don't know where I am in the recovery because I can't compare it to any other recovery I've had because I haven't had any injury before. Whereas with the foot, I can say it's on pace. I've had it before and I'm okay. But yeah, I'm using this time to watch the guys, watch guys train. So I've been coming to the gym every day, watching them, watching class. Staying engaged.
That's
and it lets me go back to the gym and lift and put that weight on again that I lost and, give my body a change of doing this high intensity kind of cardio stuff and work on gaining weight, building muscle back and getting strong. Cause, I appreciate having a few more pounds on my body and a little bit more muscle mass just to go with the guys that are bigger. So yeah, all in all, it was a tremendous learning experience. And again, super thankful that I could have a learning experience like this without having to pay such a harsh price.
Yeah.
So it was, good. I talked a lot about in my Instagram on those stories about the perils of body triangles.
Yeah.
So don't do bottom side body triangles. I learned the hard way. What the guy did was a legitimate technique. I do think he knew the technique and was doing it. And I think he was probably a little sheepish that it worked and that it caught me. Victor doesn't think the guy knew the technique and he just was like, happened to be pushed, on the area. But when you're in a body triangle, you've essentially stationed, one of your foot in place and put a lever on it. So you got to be a little careful with that. So I learned that lesson the hard way. Live and learn. It's one of those techniques where you get caught in it once and then you probably won't get caught in it again.
Yeah.
It just so happened that, I don't think I was wrong. Looking back, I don't think I was wrong in putting on the body triangle. I was wrong, and the only thing that went wrong is I didn't know the perils of going bottom side with that.
Right.
If I did, I would have not let that happen. As a secondary observation, I do think I could have been a little more aggressive attacking a submission of the neck right out the gate. But I don't think making the decision to say, let me lock up a body triangle and work was necessarily bad. I think that's also a good choice. It's just that I was pretty damn surprised to be on the guy's back that quickly.
Yeah.
So I was like, let me gather myself and work. Whereas a more experienced me would have probably just said, in my head, I would have had the sequence going beyond taking the back. Like, for example, like I had a game plan of how I was going to open the match. I opened with it and it worked. And I didn't even have it budgeted towards, then you'll take the back.
Right.
You know what I mean? So in a way, I need to be prepared to go, instead of 5 steps, I need to be ready for a 10-step sequence, that ends with the kill, so to speak. So that's the other thing I kind of learned.
Or actually, it doesn't even that's like a tangent.
Yeah, the thing is like, I wasn't training for, you land on the guy's back, immediately put him out, kind of thing. Yeah. I was like, if I get there, I'll get there and figure it out. Let me work on this other stuff first. So,
well, you're also expecting the person to not let that happen, right? Because they should be defending that.
But again, I think that's the other takeaway I'd say from that is like, I think you can always, the more you're attacking their neck, the less they can use their hands to do anything else.
Right.
So I could technically, I think, have a bottom side triangle, but if I was madly attacking the guy's neck, he's going to go.
He's not going to work. Yeah.
He can't. Like, the fact that I settled gave him a chance to gather himself a little bit and think. He did try to cross my feet, I'm pretty sure.
Did he?
Before I put on the body triangle, which actually led me to put on the body triangle a little bit. So Maybe he has a little system of.
That's a weird game plan.
His system. So, yeah, man, it was. I watched the video back. I think now that I'm very pretty damn confident that my knee escaped damage. I'd say the only disappointing thing is that I felt so good for only 45 seconds. So I don't think I put in, obviously I prepared for it. I'm not going to say that I was like, I sacrificed and I did that. Like I went through the process of preparing. I enjoyed preparing, but there was work involved. There's discipline involved to some degree. Nothing out of the ordinary,
Right.
It wasn't a monumental effort by any means, but it was some discipline. And for it to have succeeded so well in terms of how I felt and how I looked at the beginning, in terms of how I felt energy-wise, how I felt strength-wise, I felt stronger than the guy. I felt bigger than everybody in that division, and I felt good. I felt good movement-wise, and I felt good mentally, and I achieved the state that I was hoping to achieve, which was the guy said, go, like combate, and my body was turned on and active and alert and high energy, but my mind was processing and seeing things.
Yeah.
My mind wasn't getting wrapped up in the adrenaline of the moment. My body was there energy-wise, but my mind was relatively calm, and I did what I wanted to do, and it worked. And it would have been nice to feel that good for a couple matches, and enjoy that high of like, damn, this is kind of working for more than 45 seconds. I mean, the match all told was, I think, 55 seconds. So once I got the guy down, I think it took me 20 seconds of circling, not even that, maybe 15 seconds of grip fighting, circling, and then...
I'm surprised that you had engaged and executed that quickly, because how much of jiu-jitsu competition do you see where they're just sitting there like just jacket wrestling forever,
Mm-hmm.
that you went for it, right? Like how much that was just instinct and drilling, and you had just done it. Honestly, how many reps of that had you done with Victor and whatnot? Or did you just have it so set in your head? No,
I repped that with Victor every day.
You did?
Going
Okay.
up to it. That was part of the game plan.
Okay.
I mean, and there, like I kind of, and I had a realization the night before or later that week. So again, I competed on Friday. My last hard training was Saturday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So Sunday, Monday. So Saturday I train hard. Sunday, Monday I'm off completely. Right. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday I drill with Victor, and then Friday I compete. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday we went through the same drilling routine, and towards the end it was guard pull, De La Riva guard pulls into attacks. And I did that, we drilled between 30 and 45 minutes each of those days. Yeah. It got shorter each day, and the intensity went down slightly each day. But it was still very up-tempo.
Right.
But I drilled that. That's what, again, like, the game plan worked better than I expected.
Better than you expected?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because I've done it here and I've gotten resistance, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I guess when people know that's what you're doing, then they can anticipate it. When you're going with someone that has no idea what you're doing, true. You have the element of surprise.
Yeah, he's probably thinking, quite frankly, you're gonna pull like close guard. I mean, like that's what people are.
A lot of people pulling close guard. So yeah, my idea was, look, I don't have a wrestling background. Yeah. I quite frankly suck on my feet. And I know a lot of jiu-jitsu people suck on their feet, but I got to be pragmatic and know what my strengths and weaknesses are, and my strength is not wrestling or judo. So I was thinking earlier in the week, I'll lock up with the guy, and if he feels weak, then maybe I might try to take him down. Otherwise, I'll pull guard. Yeah. But then later in the week, I just said, no, why are you giving your opponent any time while you're figuring out what you want to do? You've been practicing guard pulls into attacks.
Yeah, right, yeah.
That's what you're going to do. Even if you're going against the worst wrestler in the tournament, you're going to do what you've been practicing. Don't suddenly do something you haven't been practicing. So that was the right call. The fact that the guy was trying to open my lapel to start doing something only accelerated my desire to pull guard the minute I got grips, because I was like, I don't want him to pull me into some weird lapel stuff.
Yeah, right.
Let me beat him to the punch. So I beat him to the punch, and what's crazy is I didn't like there was not like I didn't remember going into half guard after the match. Like I don't remember that scramble part. I remember pulling. I remember attempting to take him down with a single leg X off balance, and then it's kind of a blur, and I just remember coming up onto his back. So I was very pleased with how all the stuff I've practiced came into play second nature in the moment when it was just instinctual. So muscle memory kind of stuff. And I do remember, like I said, I remember being in a position and seeing I can get an underhook.
Right.
Go. And I just went. Me going into the coyote hook and grabbing the leg, that's just kind of second nature, because that's just kind of what I do when I go into half guard. So yeah, what did you think when you saw it? You saw the video. You weren't there.
It was quick. I mean, like you said, it's a lot can happen in 45 seconds. So I'd seen Paul post a little Instagram story of like, oh, Noah John's up. And so like, I don't know how late to the game I was, but then I was messaging him immediately because I wasn't going to bother you, right? Like, I don't want to bother the person who's actually competing on the day of competition, because it's just one more thing for you to worry about is just, why the fuck is Chris Vu texting me or whatever it is? I didn't get any responses. And so...
Obviously.
Well, that's a given, right? But then I had seen your story. I was like, oh. And it's when you, at that point, you're like heads against the wall, and I hear the entire story. I'm like, oh, man. So... my concern at that point is like, oh, geez, like what the hell is wrong with his knee? You know, like that's terrible, just because like it's just, that's not something you want to happen to you in jiu-jitsu, is to have like a non-functioning knee. But eventually I just kind of watched it over and over, like just like hearing your stream of consciousness, and then I was like, just so, I was hurt for you, man. Like, you know, like it's
Joey had a funny story. So like, a fair number of people at the gym actually have access to Flow Grappling.
Right.
And I was on Flow Grappling because they show all the matches there. And so Joe's like, yeah, man, I want to watch you. So he told me, he's like, man, he's like, I had the shot poured and everything. I was like jumping up and down. Like he was on his back. I was like, what happened? So then Victor was there and he chimed in. He's like, yeah, man, at that point you're like, we must now pour out a shot for one of the fallen, one of our fallen comrades. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, it's one of those things, like, fool me once, right? Like that, I told you afterwards, like that's, I had tapped to that before too, and it ain't gonna happen again, right? Or it didn't happen again, right? And that was probably 8 years ago. It's just it's a silly thing, and I feel bad that it happened to you, especially in the midst of you winning the competition at that moment. And so that was a little bit disappointment on my end for you, you know, I felt your pain, I guess, you know, for something that seems so silly. But ultimately, like, I'm glad you're okay. Like, that's the most important part, right? Like,
yeah, man. I mean, and honestly, I'm not, like, with the amount of training I put in going into the tournament, it's not like, and just throughout, you know, through this year, it's not like, you know, when I was earlier, not that I've been training that long, but as a white belt or early in a blue belt, I would probably be a little more frustrated and not train, but I'm comfortable with like a little downtime, because the downtime is not downtime. The downtime is, I just can't roll.
Right.
But I can still do stuff, and I can still, you know, maybe help others if I see something that I could be like, hey, maybe try this. And I can work out in the gym. So,
yeah,
you know, I can stay active, both mind and body, so that's good.
How did it feel with deadlifting? Because, I mean, it's more of a hip movement. I mean, you're not squatting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not initiating the movement with my legs as much as I should or normally would, just because I don't want to, you know, there's some confidence issues probably just in the knee. But I don't need to bend the knee enough where it would feel weird, because I can do full range of motion with my knee. It's just I can't do it at normal speed.
Okay.
So I would say do it somewhat gingerly. So if I'm doing it right now, it's like, all right, that's like, I gotta.
Don't do it, Jesus. Like,
No, but I mean, it's like, it's a little stiff to go straight initially, and then you bring it in and it goes a little slow, and then you can bring it all the way in.
Right.
Whereas this one, I can do this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to kick with my leg now, right?
Certainly not.
So in terms of doing a deadlift, I'm only bending it, not even 90 degrees. You know what I mean? So in that respect, I think that's why it was okay. And of course, there's no lateral movement.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not trying to sumo squat. You know, sumo squat, that might be a little more awkward. So again, I didn't go heavy, but again, I did over 200 pounds.
Okay.
You know, so I mean, there is weight. Maybe not the weight that I would want to do it at, the top end, but still, baby steps, man. And I already have done leg extensions, like single, like with the machine with no weight. I've done one-legged leg extensions, and that helps with the range of motion stuff. So yeah, it's just sore. You know, I've looked at things, and I can just see it's like this ligament. It's like it's sustained damage, and it's just sore, and it needs time to heal. And however long it's going to take, But it's got to make sure I keep stretching the area so it doesn't heal up too tight.
Right.
So I have to
develop like scar tissue and whatnot.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Good. I'm glad you're staying active with it too.
Oh yeah, I'm very lucky, and I'm lucky to have guys like Mike at the gym that can give me their expertise without having to go to an office.
I was saying, it's like, what policy number are you on there, Noah?
Exactly.
Billable hours, baby. Good, man. I'm glad you're feeling better. Like, I'm glad you had some time to process it, and I'm glad you're using your downtime productively too. Like, that's the biggest thing. I think a lot of people would approach this a little bit more mopily, but
there's relief for me. Like, I'm just relieved because
it's not worse.
Yeah,
right? Like,
it's like if you gave me two options, that you always take this option. I mean, the option is don't get hurt, but if it is like I feel my knee pop,
yeah,
and I feel boom,
that like twang,
yeah,
right? Like,
boom, and the fact being out a number of weeks because of a sprain, I'll take that any day over a tear, complete tear.
And you're approaching it like you're not like, I'll just wrap it up and I'll be back on the mat. Like that would be dumb, like.
Well, yeah, no, my body won't it won't allow it right now.
Yeah.
But I can walk okay now, so that's good. So it's meaning, at the beginning I was like, fuck, am I going to need crutches or am I going to need a roller? Because just getting around the house and doing normal things was awkward,
Yeah, oh yeah, like, I mean.
But I can do that, so now I can function normally, and really the only thing that I'm deprived of is, the athletic
actual
demands of doing jiu-jitsu, which sucks, but that'll come back.
So are you going to which tapes are you going to study next then?
So I was telling David this actually. I think I want to mess around with monoplatas now when I come back.
Okay, so first off, what the fuck is a monoplata?
I don't know who came up with the name for it, but it's a shoulder lock attack that comes from most commonly that mounted position we get when a guy tries to lift his underhook from side control.
Okay.
So when the guy on bottom lifts his underhook from side control, if he has an underhook and he lifts it, that allows us to just step over into mount. And Paul and a lot of teachers teach you don't go to mount. You go to mount, but you don't go to both knees on ground. You actually
post the
one that you're stepping over. You post and trap the underhook arm in the pocket of your hip pocket, right? Well, what you would do in go-go Pilata, where you put the shin in front of the face.
Yeah, the leg that you stepped over.
Yeah,
you take
now
that
go
and
in front of
thread
the
it
face,
over their shoulder,
and then you can roll into a go-go Pilata. Well, monopilata is from that exact same position. You put your leg over the head, so your shin is now going across their neck, but then you slide out like you would slide out to do an arm bar, but his arm's trapped, so you end up using your hip as the lever to shoulder lock him. And if the guy manages to twist his hand up,
then you just take the arm.
Then you have an arm bar in the armpit,
which is
the
most devastating.
Yeah. So I mean, I was like, this is kind of cool. So
what made you think of that there? Because that's that's
honestly,
a super specific.
So Instagram came up. Instagram played into it a little bit, and I saw Galval talk about it, and then I just realized like I get into that position, I end up going for this shitty go-go Pilata, and this seems so much cleaner. So I just want to mess with that. And in terms of guards, Dave and I were talking about finally doing lapel. Like I think I might want to take a break from half guard now.
I mean, you are a subscribing member to the ever-evolving
I know.
encyclopedia.
I know. So we'll see. I really enjoy half guard. I'm really happy that I spent, the last 6 to 8 months, however long it's been, just focusing on funneling that guard and feeling it. I'm by no means an expert, but I'm proficient enough that I feel okay in it, especially, whether I want to force it or, as my goal was, if I ever land in it, I can do more than just hold the position, and that was kind of my thought process. I don't know if this is going to be the guard I prefer, but it's a guard that comes up so frequently that I need to be comfortable with it. So I did do that. So maybe I'll do some De La Riva because I was pulling to De La Riva and attacking. Maybe it'll be, it's probably either going to be De La Riva or it's going to be lapel guard. And I think what's cool about doing De La Riva, honestly, and why I think De La Riva would be the way I go, is just because it fits better into half guard what I'm doing, and it gives me more like I'm starting to actually see layers of guard now. Like I understood it, but now I'm starting to see it and how it can work, because when I'm in half guard, a lot of times people bring my knee up, so essentially they force me into reverse De La Riva. Well, from a lot of times from reverse De La Riva, if they want to stand up a little more, now they're giving me De La Riva. So in essence, they're backing out of my guard, and they're going into a more distance guard. So if I practice De La Riva, that allows me to be more aggressive with guard play from distance. And if they get by that layer, they get into half guard, which I have some experience in. Or vice versa, if they start backing out, I can punish them by going. So I'm starting to see how, Zanji Ribeiro has a great half guard. But when I watch him, he's doing close guard, he's doing half guard, he's doing a bunch of stuff. You know what I mean? There might be a position that he's better in, but to play guard, it's not like you just play the one guard, because there are exits out of those guards.
Yeah, and
but they can go into other guards. It's not like they pass. Like, one thing is they pass, another is they back out. And if you don't have the guard that they're backing out into well, then in a way they're smart. They're putting you in a guard you're less proficient in. So I probably want to go back to De La Riva and mess around with how that feels. And then if they get by it, fine. I'm in half guard now. I'm comfortable in half guard.
Right.
So it's kind of cool how this progression, how this is like allowing me to learn, but also almost like a video game character, like a role-playing character, like, oh, you've reached level 10 in guard retention. Allocate a new guard.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like start a new skill tree. You know what I mean?
Like how far do you want to take it? Do you want to keep on putting stat points to that guard, or do you want to, branch off?
Yeah.
You want to make a tank, or do you want to make a,
So there's that component. And I mean, I think lapel girl, I definitely want to learn. It just doesn't plug in as nicely right now in my head. And I still don't, it probably doesn't, it's its own kind of thing, but I do like it instead of playing spider or lasso, because it's lapel guard is healthier for your fingers, and it's just a stronger lapel grip. It's a little hard to get into, but it's just stronger. So if I want to do lapel shenanigans, I'd prefer probably to do lapel related stuff instead of spider or lasso. Right. Even though I like spider and lasso, I think lapel makes more sense, honestly. So that's kind of, and I'm sure there's more shit. Oh, and then also just like some passing. There's also just some passes I want to try, some half guard passing. So yes, David, I've been studying how to pass your butterfly half a little bit. So be ready. So what else is there, Chris?
We're
talking about guard work here.
What's that?
We're talking about guard work here and layers of guard. What's doing your? So I don't know how interesting this is for the podcast, but what's your car situation like?
It is now functioning at 100% capacity, as far as I can tell. I had to get the ABS system replaced, which was not cheap at all.
And it kept you off the mats this week.
It kept me off the mats completely. I was here Monday, ready to go, right?
Yeah. And something wouldn't turn off. It was like, what's that noise? The car's off. Don't you hear that? And we opened. Well, you had opened already. It's like, yeah, that thing's making a noise. I was like, have you heard that before? He's like, nope.
Nope. Car's off.
It might be kind of serious. We need to take it in. It's like, oh,
So
fuck.
I took it in, and sure enough, they had to run the scan on it and stuff. Turned out being the ABS module, which is not cheap. And it's also not something you can just overlook because it's like...
Yeah, it's the braking system.
Yeah. Which, in turn, I guess affects somehow the power steering and the e-brake, too. So it needed to get replaced. Kept me off the mats this week because I was bumming a ride to work. Fortunately, like, all of my coworkers live near me, so they would...
Oh, really? Okay,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
cool.
So, like, that was nice. So I got no training in. I got to work out at home, that's one of those fortunate situations I have of having a home gym.
Did your kickboxing circuits and stuff?
And lifting, and I just acquired Titan Fitness is back in stock with barbells, so I was able to acquire I've been on the market for a short barbell because if you ever see the way my
This is like what people use for curling?
No, not that short. I got a 60-inch one.
Okay, and what's that for? What's the purpose of a 60?
Just so I can deadlift and not like run the risk of breaking my wife's car's windows.
Oh, what's the weight of the bar?
It's only 25, so I have to. But the bar, it has a capacity of 500 pounds. I'm not deadlifting 500 pounds anytime soon. So I just have to. It's nice that I can do some straight bar work because I actually gave my long bar to the gym, which it's not here now. So
it's in Paul's garage.
Yeah, exactly. But like I just needed a functioning straight bar to be able to.
Because you were only deadlifting with a trap bar.
With a trap bar,
Gotcha.
yeah. So it's definitely a different movement pattern, because the trap bar is more of like doing like a squat dead, if you want to call it that. It's a much more like piston-like motion than doing more of a hip hinge. So I've had to kind of I treat it as like a beginner movement. I'm learning something brand new. Start at like 135, and I'm going to work up from there. Yeah. Because it's just a different movement. And just to kind of like give my body something different now, because I became pretty efficient at handling a trap bar.
I mean, I spoke to Paul the other day about programming for lifting, and right now he's, his recommendation, he gave me a protocol, which on paper looks fucking phenomenal.
Is it the 5-3-1?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Wendler.
Yeah. So it's 5-3-1 system, and he got me putting in the calculator stuff in terms of what your one rep max, and then it's calculating all the stuff over a 4-week. So it's 4-week cycles, and you're never getting even close to your max, which is what it's like super conservative really in terms of it gets your strength up without you ever doing your 1 rep max.
But you're
getting close. But it's like,
but you're building that density.
I mean, you do 4 weeks, and then next week you add 10 pounds to your max, and then it's going to up everything a little bit. But what's so interesting is, to what you were saying is, I was like, so how often are you changing the apparatus? Because I know Paul likes to do that. So if you're if you're deadlifting with a straight bar, then start deadlifting with a trap bar.
Yeah.
And is it like every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks, every 8 weeks? And right now he's doing it every 12 weeks. So 3 months. So do 3 months of, let's say, bench with a straight, with a straight bar, and then maybe switch it to dumbbell press for the next. So that's kind of what I want to do. I bought myself a lifting belt finally. Cause I've
really?
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, why?
Because, dude, my lower back fucking twinges on me without.
Does it really?
Yeah, and it might be a mental thing, but it can't be a mental thing because I actually feel it. The fact that I have that tight fucking belt around my waist and that it's pushing against, it allows me to push. It's essentially like the mechanism how you can climb a wall to get onto your feet without actually standing up. You can just press into the wall and shimmy your way up.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like with this. So instead of me pressing into nothing, my lower back presses into this solid belt and gives it stability there. Dude, for all things considered, like I dropped the weight noticeably to do deadlifts yesterday while doing this program. So they said, what's your 1 rep max? I took what I thought my 1 rep max was, and I dropped 100 pounds off it. You know what I mean? But I still did like 245 or 250 with a bum leg and
a lifting
not deadlifting for a while, not deadlifting for at least 6 weeks, and I felt really good.
Nice.
You know, so
with the lifting belt.
With
Whereas
the lifting belt.
This is the first time you had used it.
Yes.
Okay.
And it just felt good. So I'm excited to as my knee gets better, kind of ramp that up and not that I felt weak on the mat, but just feel a little bigger to hang with the guys that are, bigger on the mat. So I was it's just time, man. You just got to put in the time.
Yeah.
Especially with jiu-jitsu, man. It's just there's a certain speed at which you learn stuff, and you just have to accept it and enjoy it. But sometimes you want to know so much right off the bat, and it just takes time and strength and muscle training. I don't expect to get huge in a month. This is a 12-month thing minimum. That you'll see the results. It's like, yeah, in 12 months, maybe I could put 60 pounds on a deadlift.
Are you looking to only add, because like, as we know, like there are different protocols for hypertrophy, for
so
pure
my
strength,
program is right now, the strategy is half 3-2 5-3-1 half bro split, in the sense that I'm going to work back, legs, chest, legs, shoulders. That's probably going to be the split.
Back, legs, chest, legs, shoulders. So 5 days a week of lifting.
Yeah. It might end up being back, chest, legs, shoulder, legs, depending on if, I might not want to put deadlift and legs next to one another because of deadlifting. Potentially. But with legs, only one of those days is going to be a squat day. The other day will be legs, but it'll be maybe a little more conditioning oriented. But anyway, what a day workouts look like is I do the power lift first, following the 3-2, the 5-3-1. I do that lift. That protocol, at least that I would be on, has you doing 6 to 7 sets that include warm-ups to working. And then they finish with another 7 of lower weight sets of 10, like 5 sets of 10 reps.
Right.
I'm not doing the 5
that's
sets
a lot of volume.
Yeah, but that's just if you're just trying to get strong that one lift. So I'm doing up to that last working set, and I'm not doing the 5x10s afterwards, and then I'm doing
other accessory work.
More auxiliary work at that point.
Okay.
Paul suggested maybe getting a heavy row in there from time to time, and I might do that. But so what did I do? I did my deadlifts, and then I did. I actually have it on my phone here, so let me give you because I actually want to write this. I want to try to write it down so I can track progress, just because my memory is bad. So I did my deadlifts, and then I did 3 sets of 12 lat pull downs on the machine at 205. I did 3 sets of 12 machine row at machine cable row, seated at 143.
This is after deadlifting?
Yes. I did trap rows with press down rope. Okay. I don't know the name of this exercise. I wrote it trap rows with press down rope. So you take the
face pulls. Face pulls?
Yeah, you pull the thing to your face and you're working the trap. You're contracting the trap. So you're pulling the thing to your forehead.
That's actually really good for your shoulders.
Yeah, so I did that. 3 sets of 15 at 55. I did back extensions. That's when...
You're doing all this after deadlifting?
Yeah, 3 sets of 15.
How long are you in the gym, man?
This was actually like an hour.
So you're not resting at all?
I'm not resting much between sets,
yeah. So
no.
you're working
I'm resting, honestly, with the deadlifts. The resting comes from changing the weight, the plates all the time, because they're giving you weird numbers. So it's like I have to get 2.5.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm resting just like the 3 minutes it takes to change the plates. It's like, okay, I'm rested. Let me take a breather. And then finally I did I call them back dumbbell swings. I don't know the name of this exercise. There's a name for it. It's a really good finisher. You take you take a bench, you take an incline bench, you go chest down on it, head over the top, and you take dumbbells fully you let them hang. You hang you hold them and hang, and then you use your back to pull them apart. So you try to do a fly using your back, but because it's so heavy, the movement is very minimal.
Right.
And you're using your back muscles to try to do a fly and then prevent the dumbbells from hitting each other. You don't want them to go clunking into each other. So
did you make that up?
No, Paul showed me this, and I've seen bodybuilders do this. It gives you a huge pump to your back, to like around your shoulder blades area.
Yeah,
so I did that to finish, and then that was it.
That sounds like a very rhomboid movement.
Yeah,
it is, right? Like the little bat symbol in the middle of your back there.
Exactly. So,
probably under or over neglected, probably for jiu-jitsu purposes. Yeah, and you're doing all this for your back, and that's I feel as though overtraining is going to set in if you're doing that every week.
Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
Adjust accordingly. What do they say? There's never overtraining, it's under recovery.
That's true. Yeah. You're under resting.
I'll just have to take more naps, bro.
I guess so. Cool.
So that's the protocol, and then I'll do the same thing. And I'll do this, and then I'll probably show it to Paul, and because Paul is actually extremely knowledgeable when it comes to programming.
Oh, yeah. I think he's...
But he not only has he been doing it for a long time, but he actually's into it, and everybody he's been working out with, he's been working with Ashley. Ashley's going to put like 150 pounds on her deadlift because of him. Eli's put 100 pounds on his deadlift working out with Paul. And I'm not saying Paul's the one who invented this stuff, but Paul knows what protocols work.
Yeah.
And gets them on it. So
a big part of, I think, protocols are, as with everything, is accountability and actually executing it. Right? And
I found it super, what's amazing is I get why people like personal training and personalized programs, because, dude, it was so much easier to just have my phone and be like,
yeah,
I had my screenshot of what I was going to do for deadlifts. I was like, okay, 3 sets of this. Okay. And I put on the weight and I did it. And I didn't think about do I feel too tired? Do I not feel too was that too hard? Was that not hard enough? It was just do it. And when it's 5 reps, I knocked this out. Granted, I dropped the weight. So it should have felt easier for me to do all the way across. But still, mentally, it's totally different when you're the one setting the weight and you're kind of doing that intuitive thing.
Yeah.
And my jumps were way too big compared to what these jumps were. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just oh, that was easy. Boom, done. I was like, that's all I have to do? And I even noticed it when I was working out with Paul and I was doing heavier weight in the deadlifts. I was not getting as tired because, I always associated hypertrophy with working out. You have to go to exhaustion and failure.
Yeah.
To do strength training, you don't need to go to failure. You do the reps, and you're not necessarily completely killed.
Right, because you're training the skill of strength.
Bingo.
Not necessarily the muscles behind it.
Yeah.
Hypertrophy can come, with higher, it requires higher reps, right? So
I was definitely, I had been raised, I bought the Arnold Schwarzenegger bodybuilding of
the encyclopedia
of bodybuilding back in the day.
The black and white one with him curling on the...
Oh, that's awesome. That's
a great book, dude.
Oh, it's an amazing
It's
book.
a nice book. It's a nice looking book as well.
Oh, it's awesome.
I still have my copy. And Joe Weider's.
I don't have any Joe Weider thing.
The Weider one is awesome because it's just a giant collection of probably Flex magazine articles and
it's just you open those books and you start to feel small. You get body dysmorphia.
Oh, hell yeah,
you
man.
Get bad body dysmorphia. You start looking at Dorian Yates and you're like, yeah, that looks normal. I look so puny. It's
dude, so the Weider book that I have, it doesn't have Yates in it. It has Platts and Menser, the 80s, 90s early 90s bodybuilders. So those are... They weren't quite to the mass monster phase of bodybuilding yet. So HGH, I don't think has entered the picture. But yeah, you definitely. I think I purchased those when I was getting into weightlifting, in the middle and towards the end of high school, because we all go through those phases, right?
Well, here's the thing. It's when I was a kid, right? It was the two images I saw was of strong were guys like Arnold, the bodybuilders, classic era guys,
Or like big fat wrestlers.
or
right?
big fat powerlifters on The World's Strongest Man.
Oh, okay.
That
fair
had
enough.
like big barrel, like what's that guy's name? He's the
Magnus
commentator.
Vermagnuson.
Well,
and
those
stuff
guys,
like
but
that?
the
Yeah.
American guy, I can't think of the guy's
Bill
name.
Kazmaier?
Yeah, Kazmaier. Like
Yeah,
guys like
yeah.
Bill Kazmaier, right? Like barrel chested. So obviously, I was like, I want the aesthetic. I want the strong guy that's aesthetic looking. So
Yeah. You want to be the Putinowski.
yeah, nobody looked like what a CrossFit athlete looked like. That body image didn't really exist.
Right.
Athletes were starting to look like that, but
Because
even at
there was
that,
the stigma attached of weightlifting makes you slow was the stigma then. So
and also athletes were not as big and muscular as they are now.
right.
They were very much skill development, like even football. If you look at football players, like what was it? It was like when the Cowboys had that run where they won 2 Super Bowls with Jimmy Johnson, another one with Barry
You're talking to a guy who
Switzer.
doesn't watch football.
I know,
so.
but this is like 92 or 93.
Was that like Troy Aikman?
Yeah,
was the
Troy
guy?
Aikman and stuff.
Okay.
Anyway, the big deal was their offense. They had offensive linemen. They were over 300 pounds, because offensive linemen up until that point were heavy guys, but they were 200-pound guys. They weren't 300 pounds. Now offensive linemen are like 6'3", 350, 360, Athletes are getting bigger just because of size.
360?
Oh, yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Now, they're getting bigger human beings, but they're also...
they have the athleticism.
There's athleticism,
Yeah.
and they're not like before. Big guys were fat. Now they're big guys that their body fat percentage isn't great,
But there's a whole lot of muscle underneath
there's
that.
a lot of
Yeah.
fucking muscle under that. So there's actually interesting articles about offensive linemen that have retired and have dropped like 80 pounds, 90 pounds, and they look like endurance runners or CrossFit athletes now.
Really?
Yeah. So they work to keep their weight on because they're spending massive amounts of energy, and they have to consume massive amounts of food. So their job was to eat food to keep their weight up. And now, in terms of longevity and being healthy, and it was crazy is how skinny they end up looking.
I mean, 'cause they're
Granted,
already like
they're
6'8"
going to
or
probably
whatever.
highlight the extreme case where they turn into an Ironman athlete, but
Yeah.
still, bottom line is that CrossFit body where you have guys that have and girls, but it's like you have abs, you have shoulders, but you don't have the necessarily the mass of and the aesthetics of a bodybuilder, especially classic physique, but you don't have the
A lot of them are getting
barrel-chested.
there, though.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's just they're these athletes that look strong, but they don't look like bodybuilders and they don't look like massive powerlifters.
Right.
There's this sort of like bulked up Iron Man looking guys.
They honestly, they look like what you think of a true comic book superhero has been.
Comic
drawn
books,
to.
I think, range from that physique to bodybuilding physique,
Yeah.
depending on the artist,
Right.
right?
But like
that
they,
sort of thing.
they mostly when you think of how they draw, like a Captain America, like that's sort of kind of what the CrossFit athlete is sort of molding itself or has become. When you think of like the strong looking, agile, type athlete. I mean, and combat athletes are starting to head that way too. Like
I think
if you look at-
it's going to be that, and then between that and more endurance-looking athletes, depending on the person's probably body type, if they're mesomorphs, ectomorphs, that sort of thing. Like Alessandra.
Oh yeah, he couldn't. Yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, he's strong and he's got endurance. So I mean, the body type for, like, when you look at swimmers, at least when I look at swimmers, they all really have predominant traits that look similar.
so ectomorphic,
Right?
Right,
And
ectomeso.
and also just how they've developed their shoulders and traps and lats. Like
Yeah.
they have the same body type. So, and sprinters outside of height have very similar body, and they're super strong, but they have similar body structures from their sport. I feel like combat athletes, because each of them have different backgrounds, the wrestlers tend to be a little more, they have that little more stocky, hunched look, and the Muay Thai guys tend to be long and rangy a little more in general.
Yeah.
But I think because MMA doesn't dictate what your base is, therefore the body is going to kind of reflect what that person's base discipline
True,
was.
yeah, because
provided that they started as a child, because I do believe a child that starts athletics at a serious level is going to have their body development influenced by that sport. Meaning,
I think there's a certain amount of survivor bias too, though, right? Because the ones who end up sticking with it for a lengthy amount of time are generally the ones who may or may not have the natural attributes to.
I agree with that, but I do think
right?
that if you have a youth athlete competing serious or training seriously a sport, their body is going to adapt as they're growing to that, and that is going to kind of stick with them for.
Sure.
That's going to stick with them. So I think wrestlers are good examples because, Victor jokes about it's like there reaches a year of training where the wrestlers just like their shoulders start growing forward.
Yeah.
Stage 2. He's evolved.
He's like the yeah.
And swimmers, like you said, they all have this huge upper body, especially on the back, because they've been doing that.
Yeah.
Or rowers. Not that you see many kids rowing, but they develop their back. So I do think it does influence things. And the fact that MMA, you have multiple backgrounds. They could be a wrestler base. They could be a Muay Thai base. They could be a Jiu-Jitsu base.
Yeah, that's true.
You could have different, body types. You can have a Sean Shirk. You can have a BJ Penn. You can have a George St. Pierre. You can have Anderson Silva. You can have, they're different. Then you get to heavyweight, and then they all kind of. Then you have jacked or just big. You have Ngannou, or you have.
Yeah, you have or Roy Nelson.
Well, Roy Nelson is kind of the exception to everything.
Yeah. So who do you have next week? By the way, who you got?
Okay, which one is that? Which event is that?
Khabib Gaethje.
That is next week already.
That's next Saturday.
I love seeing the memes about it. Like next week, the two like baddest men on the planet will compete, and they have pictures of both wearing glasses, looking like complete nerds. Like Gaethje looks like.
Who you got?
All right, so hang on. Let me pull up this card.
Actually, there's one tonight.
There is one tonight, and there's some good fights tonight. Oh, it's Ortega and
and Korean
Zombie. Yeah, man. All right. The one problem with UFC is that they don't the numbers. You never remember the numbers.
You never remember the numbers, and there's Fight Night ESPN Plus, UFC on ESPN. I don't even know what the hell it all means anymore. So it's all just like. Exclusively on ESPN Plus? Does that mean it's an ESPN Plus event? Does it mean what does all this mean?
Well, yeah.
But it's 54 next week. 254.
254. All right, let's go.
At this point, you just need to call it the damn main event, and then that's the way you're going to reference.
I mean, they kind of do it, but it's hard to find sometimes. All right, here we go. Khabib Gaethje. Here we go. Let's see the other matches on the card. Whitaker Cannonier. That's also a big fight.
Oh.
Volkov, Walt Harris, that's a good fight as well. Dos Anjos against a Russian dude I've never heard of.
God, he's still fighting, huh?
Let's see. All right. Oh, Stefan Struve against Tia Tuivasa. That's an interesting fight.
That's a really interesting fight.
I thought Stefan Struve retired. Alex Oliveira's fighting.
They're just looking for COVID-free athletes at this point.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, so in the main event, I've got I would go with Khabib. I would go Khabib with like a second or third round finish, ground and pound. The only X factor, in my opinion, is I don't know what Khabib's head state is in. I mean, he's lost his dad and he hasn't fought since then.
And
so
who is his corner?
Yeah, so I don't know how that's going to affect him positively or negatively. He might just be done. He might be like, you know what, fighting's fucking not that pales in comparison to other things,
right?
Or it might not, and he'll just be like, I'm gonna kill, But I don't, I know people say, and Gaethje looked amazing against Tony. I mean, I thought he looked extremely technical against Tony in terms of what he was doing. Tony was taking ridiculous shots. I just don't think. I think Khabib knows what he does well, and I think he's gotten this far not because he's ducked guys that were good on their feet. I mean, I think Conor was a more dangerous fight than Gaethje is. I just think Gaethje's put together more wins.
Yeah.
Right now,
he's
so
just
he's the
tougher guy. I mean,
But
not that Connor's not tough, but
I just unless Gaethje like surprises me with his grappling ability or his wrestling defense, I think Khabib's gonna kind of lurk there a little bit and take him down, and then that's it. He's gonna tie him up
with face crank back.
No, I think what I just see is he's gonna get up. He's gonna get him on the fence. He's gonna be draping his whole body on the guy, and Gaethje's gonna be like starting to stand up, tripped and goes back down to all fours.
Yeah.
Start to stand up, go back to all fours, and he's just gonna wet blanket the fuck out of him, and then eventually he'll get on him and have that kind of quarter mount, and he's just gonna be punching with Gaethje's gonna have his hand over his face, and it's just gonna be under on the chin, over under, and I think eventually he's gonna get him. I think it's gonna be a ground and pound finish, or it's gonna be 5 rounds of him doing that. But I think he'll be able to finish.
Of punishing.
Yeah.
I mean, the Gaethje's last performance was very hard to gauge, just because I think is it safe to assume at this point? It's safe to say that Tony wasn't in the best of.
I don't know.
That wasn't the best Tony that we could have seen.
So
it's hard to gauge.
I try to avoid making comments like that. I don't know. He knows. But what I did see was, do you follow the guy who makes those funny videos on the fights?
Not quite.
No.
I mean, I don't know who. There are a lot of people who make a lot of funny videos. I know,
but this is, dude. He made one about Tony. Dude, it was so funny. So. Here, just watch the very beginning. Watch this. Watch this.
Eddie Brown.
Yeah, that's all I want to see. Looking good, Tony. That boxing's looking beautiful, Tony. He brings him up again. It's fucking awesome. I fucking lost it. So yeah, guys, if you're wondering what I was talking about, dude, I don't know how to pronounce it. Mohaded Fudalat. Anyway, this guy's
try to figure it out phonetically, guys. It'll probably figure it out.
Anyway, follow him. He makes these awesome little animated cartoons with all the fighters, and he's a big fan, and I'm a big fan of his work. So
I like Khabib's chances. I mean, maybe does he should retire after this.
What did he say? How many fights does he have? Does he have a round number, or is he off from a round number?
He's 28 right now, so
he gets to 30, and then
he's got 2 more.
Yeah,
right?
He gets to 30 and done. I mean, I think he wants to fight GSP, but I don't know.
You think that's a big draw?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Just because of GSP.
But I think for the UFC, they'll. I mean,
GSP's like 40 now.
At the end of the day, they'll make a big payday, which is great. But what they're trying to avoid, in a way, is that we can't have these guys come out of retirement or have retirement matches for titles, and then
then they go back into retirement. Like if they win,
they don't like the John Jones situation. I mean, at the end of the day, it works, but it's like.
Yeah, like now we got Jan Blachowicz as the.
What they don't want is like, George just won the title from Khabib, and then he retires.
Right.
So now what happened? Our champion just lost, so we just undercutted him a lot, and now the belt has nobody.
Yeah.
Those are risky fights for them. Like, what they want is the person to have the belt, to win, to keep the belt, and make that person's stardom higher.
Right.
But when you have like a Khabib saying, I kind of want to retire, and I want to have ideally, they have. That's why I think they prefer having. I don't know. I don't know this, but I want to say that they probably prefer that those fights happen when both those guys don't have titles. That's why they did Vanderlei and Chuck. Granted, they got Vanderlei and Chuck because Pride got acquired by the UFC. But Vanderlei and Chuck is easier to happen when they're past their primes and neither one have their belts, because you don't have. You know what I mean? It's like an interesting matchup just for the sake of the matchup, but there's no belt involved. Imagine Khabib and George, I
mean, it happened with Bisping and George, right? Like, Bisping was kind of on his way out, became champion.
Yeah.
George came out of retirement to fight him.
And then
won the title.
So it was a big fight.
And he immediately vacated.
Yeah, it was a big fight, but then there was no momentum that the UFC built from that. So for a one-time payday, sure. But in terms of what's on the line, well, if Khabib wins, he retires. That's probably okay because he retires, great.
Yeah.
If George wins, he retires, and then if Khabib doesn't want to retire, you've cut the legs out of Khabib because he just lost to George, who just went and retired. So now we're like, well, Khabib, what was he gonna? How do you hype up Khabib for another fight after he just lost?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there are ways to do it, but ideally, you get Khabib has one last fight against, let's say, Conor, and he wins. So Conor gets out of the picture, he retires. Then they have a new tournament for the belt.
Yeah, like
that works.
Right.
Then a year later, Khabib comes out of retirement and fights George.
I want my belt back.
No, for George.
George
Who's the best of all time?
Right.
No belt. Send me location.
Yeah.
Then they do that. So I think from a promotion standpoint, that's kind of, I believe the logic of it. Maybe, they'd say something else, but that's my logic for it.
Oh, man. So what's interesting about Khabib, right? Like, by the way, I can tell you watched a lot of wrestling in your day.
Oh, yeah.
This is all a lot of storytelling that's involved.
Absolutely.
To do that.
And I do think, they're all promotions. That's why I think, there is a lot of similarity. And that's why I said, a few episodes ago that it's not about the UFC is a fight promotion organization,
right.
Not a martial arts combat, who's the best for the sake of finding who the best is. No, it's, how do we make stars? Because stars are what, attract. I mean, Demetrius Johnson is a perfect example. Demetrius Johnson is one of the best pound-for-pound fighters on this planet.
Of martial art.
Martial art. He does everything. He's amazing. Yet, they were happy to trade him to the 1FC for Ben Askren, which, if you're a sports team, you would never do that. You have LeBron James on your team, you're like, oh, LeBron James is on my team, but I'm going to send him away to China because I'm not interested,
right.
No, I mean, you keep him, but what? He wasn't drawing. But who was drawing? All these, Chael is not as good of a fighter as Demetrius. I'm not saying Chael is a great fighter, but Demetrius Johnson, pound for pound, is way better than Chael Sonnen. And plenty of guys.
Oh, no, you
Mike
mean
Perry.
Askren.
Mike Perry. Mike Perry is a draw.
Yeah.
No one would ever, I think, say, outside of Mike Perry's camp, that Demetrius Johnson is inferior to Mike Perry as a fighter.
Right.
I'm not saying Mike Perry couldn't beat Demetrius Johnson, but their size at play. I'm just talking about strictly in terms of what the person does. But being a star, being a draw is what matters, what makes the athlete money, and it's what makes the promotion money. So it's in the promotion's best interest to create stars, because that's how you create stars, and then you put star power against star power, and you get these can't miss fights. You get these spectacles. I mean, to me, the spectacle that I enjoyed the most was Nate Diaz and Conor. I want to see a third. They still need to do that, and they're waiting. They'll get that in before they're all retired. Yeah. They'll get that in. So, and yes, wrestling absolutely does that. They get to do it because the outcome is predetermined. The UFC has to work with not predetermined.
Yeah, they got to work with
that we know of.
Let's not even plant that seed there, Trump. Calm down.
I mean, in Japan they did it.
No, yeah.
In Japan they worked. They worked.
But I mean, I think that's done in a different way in America. It's done via matchmaking.
Yes.
It's not done this sort of like explicit way. I think it's done via how matches are made and contracts are signed.
Correct.
Is how the predetermined sort of thing works in America, at least. At least that's what I want to believe, because I want to believe the sport is as pure as it can be.
And that it's like,
done via
and part of that also
bureaucracy.
Also makes sense, because it's like you have a talent, a raw. If you have a prodigy, well, a prodigy still is inexperienced. So, does it even make sense at any level to put the prodigy in with the champ right away? No,
right.
you do have to build them up, just because they're inexperienced.
Exactly.
They're young. Let them get their victories, but you're not feeding them tomato cans. You're actually, you're treating his experience accordingly and giving him reasonable matchups
and marketing them
correct.
Appropriately.
Yeah.
So that's
I mean, John Jones, they brought him up well.
Oh yeah,
like he was a phenom. Well. He did some throws, and then they probably pulled the trigger a little early, just because there was like an injury that caused him to go in against Shogun or there was some weird circumstance. They said, well, I think Shogun had an opponent.
I'd have to look back at that.
And then Shogun's opponent got hurt, and John Jones won, and Joe Rogan said, Dana White just told me that, so-and-so dropped out, and you're going to be given the title shot against Shogun. So that was like, oh, this up-and-coming exciting fighter is now going to be the last minute, not last minute, but going to be the replacement. And then, he took over. But he had already had, like, I think 4 or 5 fights.
Oh, yeah, he was well in
not,
the,
he was seasoned in the UFC even. So
Bonner and I forgot who he had fought at that point. But all right, well, welcome back.
Thanks.
Welcome back to both of us. Right?
Yeah.
From 2 very distinctly different debilitating events to us this week to keep us off the mats. Yeah, man. Keep training. Keep rehabbing rather, not training. I'm glad you're feeling better. Your spirits are back to the Noah of old. I think you've processed all your emotions.
Yeah, there was some processing involved. I mean, it was just, shock, some acceptance, and then relief.
Yeah. The 5 stages.
Yeah, the 5 stages of grief or something. Anger. What? Denial.
Yeah,
what?
denial. Yeah.
Denial, anger, bargaining, something, and acceptance.
Yeah.
Psych majors out there screaming the 4th one.
Yeah, I feel like Amy Coney Barrett.
So anyway, we are coming up on our 1-year anniversary.
Sorry.
And yeah, we're coming up on our 5th year. Our 1 year, 1st year anniversary of BJJ and Brews. That's going to be next week. In terms of like 1 calendar year, that's going to be next month from the time we're recording. In terms of 52 episodes, that'll be in a couple weeks because we did miss a week or 2 in there somewhere. But
good backlog,
dude. We've been doing it for almost a year.
This is
man.
awesome.
So
it's a little bit of an institution we got going on here now. It's awesome.
So anyway, like, subscribe, share, and as always, we will catch you down the road.